The entrepreneur's sweet spot, your sweet spot is the place where you're most likely to see an opportunity, all right? And where you're able to come up with an opportunity that works well for you, all right? So, first of all, you look inside yourself. What are your capabilities? What are your skills? What are your experiences? What are your backgrounds? What are your interests? Think about yourself and then look at the environment and where do you see an opportunity. Um, and where that overlap occurs, that's the place where you're most likely to find a place where you can make a profit, right? So it's one thing to come up with a general opportunity that someone can exploit. I'll give you an example of something that I came up with. I thought it would be great if I could develop a shingle that changes colors based on the temperature. In other words, the shingle turns light in hot temperatures and dark in cold temperatures. And I figured out that doing that would greatly increase the energy efficiency of homes, right? Because dark colors attract heat, light colors reflect heat, and so if you had a light roof in the summer, you wouldn't have to spend near as much on air conditioning. If you have a dark roof in the winter and the sun hits it and heats your house, you spend less on heating. If you could have a roof that changes colors, that would be perfect. Um, Great idea. I have no idea how to do that. I don't have any chemistry background. Um, I kind of looked into it a little bit. I made a couple of phone calls. Nobody's actually making a shingle that changes colors, but there is going back. I think it's MIT again. It may be, it may be. I'm pretty sure it's MIT. There's a team of scientists there that are working on some kind of paint, some kind of coating that they can put on existing shingles and give it those characteristics of reflecting sunlight in hot temperatures and attracting it in cooler temperatures. What did I do? I found a great opportunity in that outer environment, but I did not find an opportunity that I myself could exploit. The opportunities that you can exploit are going to do both, right? They're going to be a real opportunity that's objectively true in the external environment. You can describe it to somebody else and somebody can say, yeah, I can see that. There's an opportunity there. Um, but they're also going to be in your wheelhouse. They're going to be related to what you can do. You want to build a business around your own skills and capabilities and knowledge, at least to begin with. We're going to read the E-Myth Revisited, and we're going to talk about how it's folly to stay there forever, right? You can't, um, you know, be a technician forever and hope to grow your business. Um, but in the beginning, you are the technician a lot of times, and it needs to be based around something that you're good at. We're going to talk in the next slide about the external environment and what all's involved with seeing opportunities in the external environment. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this slide right now because we're going to come back to this idea when we get to SWOT analysis and once we have a business, being able to scan our environment and identify opportunities and threats. However, when you're coming up with your initial opportunity, it helps to understand the general environment. And so there are 6 aspects of the general environment. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but starting with the top, political, legal, these are changes in the tax law or changes in government regulation that may create new opportunities for businesses, right? There may be a new law that says, if you put in a geothermal air conditioning heating unit, there's a $5,000 tax write-off for it. And you see that this um, bill looks like it's going to pass. Actually, this bill's already passed, but let's say you're, in the year 2005 or whenever it happened, you see this bill's going to pass. You say, yeah, I'm gonna start doing this. I'm gonna learn how to put these in and build a company around this because I think there's an opportunity here. All right. Sociocultural, societal currents that may affect consumer demand. It may open up new markets and it may force others into decline. There's been a lot of anti-sugar kind of science-based messaging from the health and fitness industries for a while now. Um, that has on the one hand, decreased opportunities for companies like Coca-Cola, um, but it's increased companies for others that maybe aren't designing food products around sugar as much. There are sociocultural trends around the environment, around um, maybe social justice issues. Um, just our society's in flux. That's just kind of the nature of this modern life in the United States. And obviously, the last few years, it seems like it's been in hyperdrive. Um, there are sociocultural trends in terms of what people are interested in, what people care about that are going to drive opportunities. There may be demographic trends. We have an aging population. The baby boomers are turning 74 or 5 this year. Obviously, that's turning into, and starting to turn into an elderly demographic. It's the biggest 15-year, if you put the group population of the United States into 15-year increments, that's the biggest chunk of the population is that group of people born between 1945 and 1960, my parents. And as they move along into retirement, as they grow older, they're going to have different needs. All right. Economic trends, these are things like changes in the rate of inflation, interest rates, currency exchange rates, things that might, propel you to start a new business that is focused overseas. It could be a lot of things, but economic trends are definitely going to, the way taxes are structured, are going to open up and close up opportunities. Entrepreneurs need to keep their eye on that. Global trends, these things are things that reflect international developments that might create new opportunities overseas as well, like a growing middle class in a place like Brazil, or I hate to say China right now with all of the controversy that's going on with China, but you know, dramatic change in China from a generation ago in terms of the number of people that are in the middle class. It was basically a third world country in 1990, and not so anymore. So that opens up all kinds of opportunities for people that want to do business with China. Um, and then a big one, of course, we've already talked about new technology, but technological trends really have a chance to be sweeping changes that spawn new businesses and wipe out existing businesses, right? And so, businesses that are based on an outdated technology, the winds of change, man, they sweep in, and there's really not much they can do about it unless they anticipated the change. Kodak is an example of a company that was introduced to digital film technology when it first came out, and Kodak said, they were going to take a pass on it. They said, we think our chemically developed pictures are the way people want their pictures. Uh, they thought that they made the argument that they looked better. Um, and they got smoked by that decision. Um, technological changes, companies that built their, built their technology around maybe CDs or DVDs, and now everything's MP3 or streaming, or most things are. Those companies have been hurt by that. But the companies that are writing the new technologies obviously have done a lot better. So that's the general environment. These are areas where new opportunities can be seen. We look for flux, right? These are areas where there's a lot of dynamism, a lot of change. Where there's change, there are new opportunities for entrepreneurs.
A specific aspect of the environment that entrepreneurs need to evaluate when they begin is industry. So in the last slide, we talked about general environment and how flux in the general environment can create opportunities. However, anytime you're thinking about pursuing an opportunity, you've got this idea, you think it's really going to work, it's really important to evaluate the industry. A lot of times industry serves as a constraint to the opportunity. So there are certain industries that are super attractive and some that aren't so attractive. The restaurant industry is one that a lot of people want to go into. A lot of people have a passion for food and they maybe have worked in a restaurant and they feel like this is something that I can pull off. And maybe they can be very good at it. But the restaurant industry is extremely dog eat dog, extremely unattractive. It's extremely harsh, an extremely harsh industry, and that really narrows the size of all opportunities in the restaurant industry. Where you know, in other industries, some that aren't quite as alluring, some that maybe require, you know, getting your hands dirty with manual labor. Um, those industries tend to be more forgiving. So what Porter's Five Forces is a way of evaluating the attractiveness of a given industry. So just like with the last slide, I'm not going to spend a ton of time going over each of these because we are going to come back to it when it comes. We're going to get it more into strategy once you have a business, and this framework is going to come up again. But I did want to briefly name and describe the five forces. So the first is threat of new competitors, which, you know, if you're an outsider looking to join an industry and there's a high threat of new competitors, that makes it easier for you to go in. But when you're doing this analysis, you need to think of yourself, okay, once I'm there, once I've overcome the barriers to getting in, what are the threats going to be? And threat of new competitors, when it's high, is going to make an industry less attractive because there is a chance that others are going to come in and take market share away from you. Threat of substitute products or services is the second one. Basically, if your product or service is something that can be easily duplicated, or that there are other products and services that may be different. They may be, you know, quite a bit different, but they give people basically the same benefit, the same utility, the same enjoyment as what you provide, then those are considered substitutes. And even, you know, something from another industry that may not even be on your radar, that's a threat to you being in this industry. So, you know, if you own a movie theater, a substitute would be, you know, streaming video, something like that, or live sports. There are, you know, lots of entertainment options, and, you know, just because it's different than what you do doesn't mean it can't impact you. All right, the third one, what is the current rivalry among existing competitors? Do competitors in your industry kind of leave you alone, or is there a lot of competition? Is there a lot of you know, real aggressive, whether pricing or negative advertising or one-upsmanship, where they're, you know, constantly trying to outdo one another in what you offer customers? Those can make competition. Those can drive away your profits, right? And so it's something to look at. The last two are kind of similar ideas, but looking at it from, you know, different spots. The bargaining power of suppliers. All right, so if there is a product or a pool of labor that you really rely heavily on, but those suppliers have a lot of control over, you know, a lot of power. There's lots of options for them, and, you know, you have to pay top dollar to get that supply, whether it's a physical resource or a human resource. That makes it tough, right, to be competitive, because they're going to bargain away all of your profit or most of your profit. Similarly, bargaining power of buyers. If your customers have a lot of options, this is kind of like threat of substitute products. But if your customers, you know, if what you're selling is really a total whimsical, non-necessity type of purchase, that gives your buyers tons of power. If, you know, you only have a few buyers, let's say you only have 4 or 5 main customers and each is really high dollar, well, each of those buyers has a lot of power over you, right? And you become a price taker rather than a price maker. You basically have to take the price that your customers will give you for something. So you don't want to be in a weak position with respect to your buyers or your suppliers. And so that's why it's really important to analyze the industry before you jump in. It's really something that a lot of entrepreneurs ignore. They shouldn't. So what I hope you can see from the discussion on Porter's five forces is there is potential that an idea can seem really solid, make a lot of sense for you individually, but still not be viable for some reason out in the environment. And there are other reasons why an idea might not be viable. And so what this slide shows is a way of thinking about your business ideas that screens them for fatal flaws. Basically, we want to look at 5 aspects of an idea and use those as categories for determining whether an idea is viable or not, whether your business idea can truly make it. So why do we do this? Why do we break it down into 5 categories? We want to have a systematic way of thinking about new venture ideas. So we don't want to forget one aspect, right? We may check 3 boxes, but if we forget to evaluate the other 2, then we've done ourselves a great disservice when it comes to evaluating opportunities. And so these are the categories that you should think about when you're trying to decide whether your idea makes sense or not. So the first thing is the strength of the business idea itself. Is this something that solves a problem or introduces something that that helps alleviate a real need, right? So going back to what we talked about earlier with a new benefit, or taking an old idea to a new market, or introducing a new technology in a way that's innovative and beneficial to people. Those are all examples of business ideas that really are strong because there is something there's something there, right? That it's not just something that you've decided to do it because you want to do it, but it's based on a real felt need. Okay, second, we have the industry and competitive advantage. We talked about industry in the last slide with Porter's 5 forces. Competitive advantage, I'm not going to go deep into that yet. We'll get there in a couple of lessons. But by competitive advantage, there's the idea that I can offer something valuable, some kind of resource or capability that the industry doesn't currently offer, or doesn't offer as well as what I could do it, the way I could do it. And we'll have a framework for evaluating that shortly. All right. Third, capital requirements and venture performance. So in order to perform at the level I need to grow at the level I need to achieve the size that I need to, how much money is it going to take? And is that going to be a barrier that keeps me from pulling this off? This is not one that people usually forget because it's a hard barrier, right? It's not something that you don't see coming. You realize what it takes to get started. But you want to do a solid, thorough job of estimating those startup expenses and figure out if that makes the idea not attainable, not viable. All right. Fourth, we talked about it earlier, the capability of the founders, right? You need to have a business idea that is based around something that you can pull off, or that you can assemble a team that they can pull it off. All right. So the capability of the founders is something you've also got to scrutinize. All right. And then the fifth one is the targeted market and customers. Okay, so in the first one we talked about, is there a felt need? Is this something real? There still has to be enough people, right, that have this need, right? So I could differentiate an existing product or service, right, and I could do something that I think that I've got this hobby and I've got this problem, so I'm going to create a business idea that addresses the problem I have. Well, if not enough people have that same problem that you have, if not enough people perceive that as an issue, as a pain point, then it doesn't matter. So there has to be a market there. And this is where a lot of times, you come up with an idea, and market research is really the way to go here. Sending out surveys, whether they be email surveys, or enlisting a company to conduct some kind of survey research for you. A lot of times it makes sense. You can really detect early on whether there's something there or not. A lot of times if you come up with something, a really good idea, and you tell that to people, you're going to get really strong feedback. And if you're not getting that strong feedback, that strong positive feedback, then you need to rethink whether there really is something there. So these are 5 ways of looking at a new business idea and deciding whether it's legit or not, right? Deciding if it has a fatal flaw. Because if any one of these 5 comes back negative, if any one of these 5 comes back, hey, there may be a problem here, that's a fatal flaw to the business, right? A business cannot stand without each of these 5 things being in place. You can't overcome one of them, a weakness in one of them with strengths in the other 4. They all 5 have to be there.